minute processing is so slow.
Yeah, you're waiting for it.
Yeah. Oh, we're a quiet bench tonight too.
Once we went live.
Yeah. It's like. Telling you. 3 o'clock. All right, I have 6 o'clock. So, order of business, call to order, roll call, establish quorum, please.
Amy LaSpisa,
Here.
Ryan Higby.
Here.
David Chancellor. Amanda Guilfoyle.
Here.
David Cleveland.
Here.
All right, presentations, presentation by a representative from Sanders, Bledsoe, and Hewitt regarding the FY 2020 audit.
I will introduce Preston Burke for the audit for FY 2020.
Okay, and the nuts and bolts of the audit didn't change a lot. We changed a couple of quick things that I'll highlight, but pretty much the same standards are in effect, the same opinions, that kind of thing. So I'll just highlight some things that are specific to Dewey Public Schools. If anybody has any questions, let me know. I'd love to answer them. If I can't answer them here, I can definitely research it and get back to you guys as soon as I can. So I'll go ahead and get started on page 5. Everyone has a digital copy.
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure, because no one was looking at page 5. I'm going to quit reading off the page numbers if no one's paying attention. I'll just skip to the end and we'll just get this over. So page 5, it's what's called the Independent Auditor's Report. This report serves 2 purposes. The first one being explains the difference between management and the auditor's responsibility for the financial statements. Management is you all, auditor is us. And then the second part, it talks about the opinions that we issue on the audit. I'll go over those here in a second. But basically, this is what a lot of people consider to be the most important report in the audit. But I will tell you, if you read it, it's going to bore you. So on page 7 and 8, this is what's called the Independent Auditor's Report over internal control over financial reporting, compliance, and other matters based on audit financial statements performed in accordance with government auditing standards. This report, it explains the different types of testing we do, specifically the difference between an internal controller of financial reporting and compliance and other matters. So just kind of details the scope of our audit, what we do when we come in, the 3 times a year that we come and audit you all. On page 9, this is a report that combines the 2 previous reports, but this report is specific to the major programs for the federal single audit, which you all passed the $750,000 federal expenditure threshold. So it just details, again, management auditor's responsibility for the scheduled expenditure of federal awards, and then it also talks about compliance and other matters, and it talks about our opinions. On page 11, this is the disposition of prior year's significant deficiencies. So this is where any findings that we had the previous year would be addressed, and then your response to those findings. We didn't have any material findings last year, so that report is blank. And if you go over to page 12, we don't have any material findings this year either. So this year, you guys get another clean audit, so that's a great thing. We do issue what's called an adverse opinion over the combined financial statements. And that has to do with the fact that districts your size, districts much smaller, and districts much larger do not have the tools or the personnel to accumulate the data and the depreciation and the present value of what's called a general fixed asset group. So basically, your inventory would have to have a present value at all times to be on the audit. You guys can do it. It's going to cost you a lot of money. You'll have to buy a new system. You'll have to hire 2 or 3 people that their only job is to drive around. And right now, it's just not feasible. Unfortunately, the state requirements require us to audit you all based on that. However, you don't have the resources to do that. And so we used to not issue an adverse opinion. We gave a qualified opinion. However, we got slapped on the hands for that. So now we have to issue a qualified or issue an adverse opinion. But please please note that you all are in the exact same group as everybody else. You guys are doing things just fine. Unfortunately, the cards are just kind of stacked against you. So on page 13 and page 14, this is a combination of all the funds that you guys operate. And the page 13 is it's balance sheet, assets up top, liabilities, fund balance down below. And then on page 14, this is the income statement. And specifically, the thing that everyone likes to look at is at the bottom of page 14, so you can see how you did. Beginning of the year, fund balance for the general fund was 1.87 million. End of the year was a little over 1.93 million, so you guys increased. That's a great thing. If my memory serves me correctly, you guys didn't even touch any of that CARES money last year. That's correct? Okay. So not only did you grow your fund balance, but also you have that little cushion that everyone's thinking is going to be important. So you guys are in a really good position. Now, again, please note that all of the numbers in this report are as of June 30th. I know payroll's coming up pretty soon. I also know that the Washington County treasurer does not cut the ad valorem check until well after the November payroll. So really, if you looked at your balance sheet right now, this is the point of having that $1.9 million carryover is right now. So you guys can keep making payroll, so you can keep, the lights on, keep your insurance. That's what the fund balance is there for. So once December comes and everyone pays their taxes and the county pays you guys, everything will be just fine. Unfortunately, as you can see up above, look at your revenue, about a little under, maybe I'd say around 1/8 of your revenue is local sources, and that's your local taxes that you collect. So until December comes, you don't collect any of that money. So needless to say, that's again where the fund balance comes in. Again, you guys did a really good job of building your fund balance, especially with these crazy times that we're living in. And on page 15, 16, and 17, this is just a little breakout. This is one of the things we changed. If you look at the right-hand column of all those, we put the prior year numbers from the last year's audit, kind of so you can compare the actual versus last year's audit. So again, last year you started at 1.92 million, you went down to 1.87. I imagine strategic decisions. It looks like you increased your instruction costs, which was likely teachers' salaries, and then you built it back up. So just kind of an interesting little thing that we added to the schedule, but please note that those are unaudited numbers. So they were audited last year, so we cannot, since we are not legally auditing you guys for the 2019 year, we can't legally say that they're audited, even though we did audit you last year. But it's just a technicality that's a lot of fun in the accounting world. Starting on page 18 and going through page, I think it's 35. This is the notes section of the audit. The notes section is basically any definition for most line items in the audit is going to come in the notes. So if you're ever curious about anything, look in the notes. And there's probably a paragraph or two about anything that you were wondering. The one thing I always like to highlight is what a school district has in its outstanding bonds and lease purchases. And last year, you guys had about 2.1 million outstanding in bonds on page 30, and you had about 80,000 outstanding on capital leases. You guys aggressively paid down that capital lease last year, so that's off your books. And then you're slowly paying away those bond issues, but you're also strategically selling the bond issues for the Dewey Public Schools project that was taken out with the Dewey Educational Facilities Authority listed on page 34. And it looks like that, where does that go? I want to say, yeah, I think it was about an 8-year from 2015, so 23.
Yeah, I think it's 23.
Okay. So basically, you'll just keep selling bond issues, paying that down. But that's just kind of the detail of where that's at. On page 36 and 37, this is a breakout of the special revenue column of the balance sheet. and the income statement to show specifically what's outstanding in your building co-op and child nutrition funds. And then page 38, this is a breakout of your activity funds by sub-account. And page 39, this is what's called the schedule of expenditure of federal awards. This shows the amount that you were awarded, the amount you collected, and the amount you expended in federal dollars. Again, the CARES Act money, you guys have 193,000. That's great to have that sitting there. And that means that June 30th, you had access to all that money, but you hadn't spent or received any of it. So that's a good thing. A lot of schools are doing that because they didn't have time to spend it on anything. That's a common problem. One thing I will note is the two programs that we tested this year as major were the Indian Education Program and the Child Nutrition Program, which included that goofy summer food program that came out of nowhere that is apparently still going on. I didn't know summer, it got pitch black at 6 o'clock, but apparently it does in 2020. So on page 40, this is a listing of all the surety bonds that the district protects themselves against theft or loss. Page 41 is insurance proving that we're allowed to audit you. And the most exciting part of the report is the last page. This is the page where we write down anything that we want you guys to change. For the last, long time, we had on there that you guys need to go to the bank more often for your local activity fund collections. It seems like aggressively you guys have made changes and done a really good job to where I was able to take this note off. So I was really happy to see that, and I hope to never put it back on. So, but if anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer them. If not, we'll go back to talking about Brent's face.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Bird, appreciate it.
Thank you. Good to see you all.
All right. So item number 3, take action on accepting the financial statements, regulatory basis, and reports of independent auditor from Sanders, Bledsoe, and Hewitt.
Make a motion to accept. Second time.
David Cleveland made the motion to accept the financial statements, regulatory basis, and reports of independent auditor from Sanders, Bledsoe, and Hewitt. And that was seconded by Ryan Higby. David Cleveland,
Yes.
Amanda Guilfoyle,
Yes.
Ryan Higby,
Yes.
Amy LaSpisa.
Yes. Item number 4, high school previous year dropout report and college remediation report by Mr. Brent Dever.
Mr. Duggar, we will turn it over to you at this point. If you can join us, please, remotely.
All right, hello everyone. I'll present my screen here a little bit and attempt to share with you my annual slides on our college remediation rates and dropout report. And I can't see you, so unless you tell me otherwise, I'm going to assume my slide and we'll move forward.
We can see.
All right. Okay, so, and this is always the confusing part, it's 2020 and I'm presenting the college remediation group for our 2018 graduates. So as you can see here across the board, this yellow line, our 2018 graduates. All in all, we had 27 students that went to a local Oklahoma schools. And then you can see the numbers there, qualifying students in English, math, and then reading. This number is up a little bit from our 2017 group by just a couple students per subject area there. The big difference is there were about 4 less students that went to an Oklahoma school with this graduating class 2018. One thing that I think is important to note with this group, especially now, a large chunk of our top 10% of our students per graduating class, they're taking Comp 1, Comp 2, and college algebra. They're junior and senior years for the most part, so they're not included really in this numbers as far as our students that have taken English or math or course in college. And so then I always this information is presented to us by county. So the other 3 schools in our county, there are their data for this time period, and I'll link this to our ACT scores. So it's going to be, we're looking at 2018, the black line here. At first, I didn't think that I could present to you all the 2018 ACT scores. because we haven't received any data from the ACT for 5-year trends with the pandemic in the spring, shutting down all testing. They don't have the data to present to us. So that's why the graduating year 2020 isn't included in this. So I went back to last year's. But you can see, if you compare to 2017, you can see the difference in ACT scores. And so I think that gives us a good indication of the relativity of the ACT score and student and predicting student success that first year in college. Any questions on college remediation rates, ACT scores before I move to the dropout report?
So real quick on the ACT, this weekend I had however you look at it, I had the pleasure of going to a college for my daughter. And I see that this particular college is getting ready to do away with ACT, SAT scores. And from my understanding, there's several colleges that are going to do that. How will that affect us, or what is your thoughts on that?
Well, you're right. There are a lot of colleges that are going to what they're calling a holistic application process, to where they are no longer really having a minimum ACT or SAT requirement. Will it change things for us? I don't see it in the short term, just because the ACT currently is our state testing platform that we use for English and math. And so for right now, the ACT will be there for all of our students. I do think, though, for our kiddos, it's a good move that the colleges are going to, with the more holistic approach to looking at the whole student instead of just a test score on a single date.
Good deal.
Anyone else? This is fun. You're all on questions.
No other questions?
All right, so dropout report. 2020, we had 5 students. You can see our last 4 years, where we're at, the ebbs and flows of the dropouts. And like I say every year, trying to predict how many students we're going to have drop out is very difficult. We have really been able to, I feel like, been able to do a good job within our alt-ed program, and just with especially now with our different avenues to be able to reach kids with online courses. I feel like we're going in the right direction of being able to secure and catch dropouts before they get there at an earlier age. This school year with the pandemic, we've had students that have just really come out of just about everywhere you can think of, wanting to get back into school as a fifth year student. And so I'm a little concerned about our dropout report for this current school year, but as you can see here, 5 for last year, that really kind of is right there within our average in most years.
Any questions? No more questions, Mr. Duggar?
All right, I will turn it back over to you then. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so item number 5, middle school previous year dropout report by Mr. Britt Massey.
Mr. Massey, would you join us, please?
Hi, guys. During this short presentation, if you could refrain from staring at the huge spot on my face, I would appreciate it. So last year, there were no dropouts at the middle school, and that's it. And I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, I'm here.
For that.
Thank you, Mr. Massey.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
All right. Item number 6, discussion regarding limitations to crowd attendance at high school basketball games.
So I'll try to make this brief, but yeah, we're entering kind of a different time period in terms of our activities. And so now we're moving from the outside to the inside, which poses some planning circumstances that we have decided to kind of take on over the last couple of weeks. And we have, depending on the level at which we will play, of course, we have RC level sports, we have the middle school level sports. It's going to dictate some different approaches as we move forward. And really the goal of this is obviously we're trying to reduce the amount of people that are gathered inside at any one time. It's obvious. And for the two primary goals, like we have with everything, is to protect our students and our staff, the health and safety of them, and at the same time, have our activities, but still continue to have in-person learning going on campus. And so we know, and it's obvious to state that it isn't just isolated to what happens on campus, whether or not we're having on-campus learning. And so we know the whole community and everything goes on out beyond our campus walls affects whether we can or cannot have in-person learning for a period of time. So feel like it was really responsible and necessary for us to take some measures. And what that was, we're really trying to look for balance in most anything we do. And so we've tried to take a balanced approach to this as well. And so what we are looking at, and we have not made any official decisions yet, is that we looked at the capacity of our high school gym, and we figured it to be around 1,000 for a good, easy ballpark figure. And so what we wanted to do was try to see, okay, how can we gain the attendance at a maximum of 50% on a game night? And again, for high school, we're talking about 7 times during the course of the winter. Junior high, we're talking less than that, 5 or 6, somewhere in that neighborhood. So what we decided to do was kind of break it up, because we understand that our home stands are filled by our patrons and our parents, and visitor stands are filled, by our visiting teams. And so we really tried to break it down by size. So that amounts to about 275 people on the home side, 225 on the visiting side. So how would we go about doing this? So our first focus was, we need to ensure that our families of our players and our cheerleaders can attend. That was our first priority, our first focus. So how would we go about doing that? Well, we came up with the concept of offering what we call a game ticket voucher that we would hand to the families. And we would give X number of these vouchers to the families, for the families to disseminate to whoever they wanted to deliver it to. It would have their player's name on it. It would be a voucher that would be kept all year long by the family.
Okay.
And so whoever's got it can keep it all year long, or they can pass it amongst family members, whatever, for a given game on a given night. And so it's the families to keep and to have. They'll show it at the ticket counter, and that allows that person to actually purchase a game ticket for that night.
Okay.
They keep the voucher, put it back in their purse, wallet, or whatever, buy the ticket during the game.
How many vouchers per student?
So that became kind of where we needed to go. What would that amount to? Based on how many players we're going to have, how many cheerleaders we're going to have. And so basically what we came up with is that we decided we think we could get away with issuing 6 to each player's family. And so we wanted to consider a typical family unit of 2 parents, 2 grandparents, 2 sets of grandparents, so on and so forth. We understand there's going to be siblings that are involved in that. So again, we wanted to leave those decisions up to families as to how they would disseminate those vouchers. And we didn't want to lay this at the feet of our kids to pass those out. So we are, in our parent meetings with our coaches, they're going to have those and deliver those to the families during the parent meeting. So that way the parents can deal with the ticket vouchers and not the players. It was just a responsibility we didn't feel like was a responsibility of our players to take on. If we can't get a parent at the meeting or whatever, then we'll have those available to us. We'll contact the parent. They can come up and get them from our high school office in due time. So that's kind of the plan with that. And that'll also account for our cheerleaders, JV players, as well as varsity players. And so we feel like we've been able to account for all those. And then additionally, we will offer a limited number of student game ticket vouchers on game day through our high school office. We got a kind of a procedure we're working out on how we'll actually do that, but we still want some of our students to be able to come to the game, but certainly it's going to be limited as opposed to what it would have been in the past. And so we're thinking somewhere in the range of 15 to 20 game day ticket vouchers that we'll be able to offer to our student body. And so the high school is working on plans on how we'll actually manage that for those 7 particular game days that we have.
So when you do that, are you going to clear the gym in between each event?
Yeah, that was going to be our.
We will not. We've taken into account that we are going to have people leave and people come and go. So we've just taken pretty much an entire number and said, this is what we feel comfortable having. And that's how we worked out the number of vouchers that we would give to each player and each cheerleader's family. And it's a comfortable number.
So the
for
total
us.
number of vouchers are the combination of the high school, the boys and the girls.
Correct, JV and varsity
Sure.
and cheer. And so we'll flip it to the visiting team. So what we'll do is on either on that game day or before that game day, Mr. Rubel will send out via email to the athletic director, to the principal, a copy of these vouchers. And we'll tell them how many that they have that they can print out. And they can disseminate those however they want to do it. They can
Right.
give them to their kids, give them to their parents, so on and so forth. They will be color coded for each event. And so that way our gate person will know what's acceptable, what's allowable for a given game night in terms of what they're going
Now,
to see come
did you say
through.
you're gonna do that on the game day or the day before?
Probably likely going to be the day
Okay,
before.
that's
if we
what I'm
can
saying,
make
because
it.
we won't see our kids.
Yeah,
Because I'm
Well-
sure that we'll probably have some.
it won't affect you guys. You're going to have yours from the very beginning.
No, but I'm assuming we'll probably, if we go to an away game,
I know exactly what you mean.
yeah,
That
we may
way,
have the same issue.
because if you hand them out the day of, then all of a sudden, you may never see your student.
Before you.
Correct. Yeah. Now, we don't know how other schools are
Yeah,
gonna,
I know.
are gonna handle their situation, but that was really kind of our discussion internally was, okay, let's flip this around to make sure we're doing something well. How would we react to it if someone was doing this
Right.
to us, and how would we handle it? So that's kind of how we try to devise our plans for our visiting teams that are coming in. You know, certainly you have a plan until it didn't work. And then we'll see, what happens, and we can tweak and change if it's necessary. But in terms of being able to function as normally as possible at the gate, and of course with our families, this was about the best plan we could come up with. We do know that other schools are doing various things.
So I was getting ready to ask, have you got any feedback of anybody else's?
Well, we've heard some other schools have kind of liked this concept. I have no idea who's going to adopt what. We will know shortly because we're getting ready to embark on the start of the season. Now, I will tell you, when we talk about middle school, which is primarily a conference schedule for our middle school. And so I think we have one non-conference opponent, and that's Pulaski. But what the conference decided to do was when, say, our girls play at home, our boys will play at the other place. So if we play no one on a given night on a Monday, if our girls are playing here, our boys are going to the water and playing. And then, of course, it's vice versa. And so what happens there is we won't use the voucher system. There won't be a need to. Again, we'll have 3 to 4 games on a given night, but you've got people coming in and out, and so capacity won't be an issue as it is on a varsity game night. So I thought it was a great plan that was brought up by our conference. I think it's going to work really well. And so it also eliminates most schools, especially ours, from using a smaller secondary gym like our middle school gym where people are kind of packed in there. So we're just strictly using the high school gym on middle school nights. And so that's another big advantage of being able just to have one gender play on our campus on one night. And so this ticket voucher program is only for the varsity JV nights that we have home games. We're going to encourage that masks be worn at the entry and the exit, or when people are mobile, when concessions and restrooms, of course, when they're sitting in the stands. We're going to encourage everyone to stay in kind of family units, try to respect the distance from other family units. And so really that's just something we're going to have to ask of our patrons and our families when they come to the games. Trying to limit the number of people in the restroom. We'll have signs out on the outside of that. We're trying to limit it to 2 at a time. And so we'll let our families and our patrons regulate themselves on that. And then we're really trying to mark off on the sidelines, the first rows to where there's no spectators sitting in those particular seats closest to the court. Yeah, we definitely want on the visitor side where athletes are stationed, and of course our scorekeepers, we have marked off that first entire row where that's a non-seating area. So we actually had that marked today, and then we're doing the same thing on the home side where that first row was marked off for no seating. We won't do anything on the ends because on the baselines, they're far enough away, but that's not an issue. And so those are really the protocols and procedures we put in place as of now, and we're considering as we start to move forward.
Okay, and you may have mentioned this, and I just missed it. But so my understanding is all admittance is going to be family tickets or visitor tickets. There aren't going to be any tickets available for non-familial,
Correct, except for students.
except for the.
Yeah, they're limited student vouchers. Yeah.
Now,
Water or
that doesn't mean that if you know a student and they don't have 6 family members, they can't give you a ticket, right?
Certainly. So there will be a case where we have a player or a cheerleader that doesn't have 6 family members that can come. Well, it's again, up to that family's choice who they give
Sure.
this to.
So
So
they
they
have-
could give them to aunts, uncles, they could give them to.
Friend
they
of the
could give them to whoever
family,
they want to.
yeah.
And as long as they keep that and they present that to the gatekeeper, they can have, they can buy it.
So what's our process, or what are we gonna do if we do have somebody just from the community show up at the game and wanna get in, and we're like, what are we gonna do?
So we have an officer at every game
Okay.
that's assigned, and we've made arrangements already that we'll have an officer at the gate to help the gate worker,
That's good.
basically police that whole concept. And so, that's kind of our plan with that, so that we have someone there to help, in those situations where there might be a disagreement or an argument.
So let me ask you this too. So like if you have a varsity boy player, he does not play on JV, you have your ticket, or whoever, somebody has their ticket, you know, in the past, they might show up to watch the varsity girls play. Do they need to wait? Is that what you're
No.
saying?
Because they have a
It should get you
telephone.
in that night no matter what.
Once you have the voucher, you can come for the JV game and stay the entire time, or just come to the boys game. It's really up to you. Yep. It's really up to the person that has the voucher.
You can come to all the girls' games.
That's what I was worried about.
So yeah, it's really open, to whoever, wants to use it, and however much time they want to spend on a Tuesday or a Friday night at home.
Yeah.
So just consideration, and I'm not saying one way or another. I know that when I went to Pryor to watch the softball game over there,
Uh-huh.
they, before entry upon purchasing your ticket, they also checked your temperature at that point. Is that something that we considered, since we're gonna have a reduced number, and they just use one of those pointing near your forehead? And if you had a fever, you were gonna be denied.
Well, that's something we haven't talked about. It's definitely worth consideration.
Especially, I'm just thinking because you're in an enclosed area.
Right.
If you weren't. Because I want to say it's relatively inexpensive to purchase those.
Well, we got a bunch of them. We use them in the offices. So we got several, so that's not an issue, just
Yeah.
having them.
Have you considered
And I didn't
making them
know,
wear
since
masks?
we had an officer there, if someone could, the officer could be shooting their forehead while someone's taking a temperature.
I'm sure they love that.
Yeah.
Might be nice to have, make everybody wear a mask while they're sitting there. It might be a lot quieter.
Hey, I don't
The
have.
reps may appreciate it.
I would,
It's kind of hard to yell with the
That's all
mask
the reason I
on.
go to high school football games, and yell at the referees, don't take that away.
I would recommend if we're gonna do temperature checks upon entry, that's on the voucher. So if
Oh,
someone's
good point.
traveling from out of
Good idea.
town,
Yeah.
they don't get upset that they didn't know their temperature's gonna be checked prior to.
Oh, they knew they had a temperature.
You would,
Yeah,
well, you
yeah.
would have-
At least you double check right before
Yeah.
you leave town.
Yeah.
Sure, and just like work, most of the time they do, but we have seen cases they haven't.
Seriously? I think that's as fair a plan as we can come up with.
Well, like I said, we'll, as we get through it, like everything, when there's things that need to be addressed, we'll certainly address it. Tweak and change as necessary, as we kind of move along. But, it's like most things this year, it's really a first. And so you don't know what you're going to experience till you get into it. So, we'll kind of see how it goes and monitor from there.
Are we allowed to still have concessions?
Mhm.
Okay, good.
Actually,
You may have rides if you don't have to.
at this point, there are no restrictions other than the restrictions that we place on ourselves.
Okay.
So let me, in conjunction with this, kind of a bigger picture, how do you feel that this will with having attendance like this, will it hurt the admissions as far as revenue that's gonna hurt what we're gonna do?
I don't, it will hurt, yeah, we're gonna take a hit, there's no doubt.
Well, are you got a projection of that number?
We don't. But the flip side of that is right now we're in a comfortable spot financially with our athletics programs that we feel like we could handle a year like this. Now, beyond a
2
year,
years, 3 years?
I don't know if we could do that.
I mean, at best, it's gonna be 50%
Yeah.
of normal, right?
Yeah, and that's
Because-
where I was going with normal,
Well,
normal 10,000 a year.
Yeah, I don't have those numbers honestly right off the top of my head. Of course, you got really good gate nights with No Water, Kane, Kansas,
Sure.
Homecoming.
Sure.
You got those. And of course, you have some that just don't bring anybody, so that adjusts all that. And our concessions, we actually have our programs work concessions, so it actually goes into their particular sub account. And so that helps them as a quote unquote fundraiser. But all that's gonna take, it's gonna take a bit of a hit, there's no doubt. But for a year, we feel we're comfortable with handling it. Beyond that, then we'll have to take some considerations. And that's, we're just kind of thinking on this, not gonna have to be necessary for 2 full years. But yeah, knocking on wood, it's about as good as we can get right now. But that's really kind of the plan as we see it right now. And so are there any other things that you guys want to consider before we finalize anything, before we move forward?
I'm guessing this will go for scrimmages too.
Yeah, we typically don't have a large contingent of people that come in for scrimmages. It's almost similar to junior high or middle school high. So our real concern really deals with those 7 home basketball games. That's really what.
Okay.
Now, we give out, I know that the school gives out passes for, youth pastors and pastors in the area and board. Are those passes going to be valid at the gate, or are we?
There will be certain passes allowed. Of course, the Coaches Association passes will be allowed. Your playoff passes that all of you have will be allowed. So all those, so yeah, that does, for instance, your all family, you're getting actually more than 6 because you got the passes. Our coaches are gonna be given a few passes for their families or immediate families, but we're probably not gonna extend it much past that because now we start getting over our capacity. And then we have to start making some choices on whether do we reduce students or do we allow patrons. So we haven't gone so far as to say all those other kind of secondary passes that we offer, but the primary passes are going to be accepted. And we did take that into account.
So
We're
the
also
6
fixing-
is, if I'm one of the 6, there are 5 remaining.
Yeah.
Right.
You're
Okay,
going to
yes,
get,
I wanna
so
make
you're going to
sure.
get you're going to get 6 for Gabby.
Yes.
Has Gabby's name on it. But you and Stephanie are not going to have a pass because you've got your playoff pass.
Well, they won't have to pay, but they'll have to have a pass, right?
We'll see Ryan scouting
You're-
the door.
Say again?
I mean, we'll have to have a pass to get in, but we won't have to pay because we'll have our pass.
Your green pass will get you in. You don't have to pay, nor do you have to have your voucher.
Oh.
Because that's, again, we've taken those coaches association and
Okay.
playoff passes.
Okay.
into account.
So she would have 6 in that.
So you got 6
So I'd have
more than
6.
you and Joe,
Okay,
because you and
Okay.
Joe are gonna get in on your playoff pass.
okay.
So,
All
yeah,
right.
not only gets you in free, it gets you in based on the fact that you have an allowable pass.
Did we
Non-voucher.
lose a lot of money in football and, or not
Probably
basketball,
not
for paid,
football. I don't-
for paid? Because we used to have a reserve seating. I don't know what they paid.
I really don't know that number, that reserve seating used to go to Booster Club. And then Booster Club is no longer
Right.
existent, and so a lot of that transferred to
To us.
athletic program, and so, but I think it's like most things, yeah, we took a hit on it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, was it significant enough for us to deter
Well,
us
sure,
from certain
yeah.
things? Probably not, for a year.
For a year.
Yeah, for a year. So I think if we get into next fall and we're looking at doing some of the same things, of course, we didn't limit attendance at football, so that
Right.
kind of is what it is. But when you talk about, some of the reserve seating, because we're also not offering reserve seating basketball as well.
Right,
which
yeah,
we
I
always
knew
did.
that.
So there's gonna be some losses in revenue. There's no doubt.
What can you do?
Not the best you can do, I
That's
think.
right.
Build bigger, yeah.
Build a bigger gym. Yeah, that won't cost anything.
So there's nothing about
I
it.
think you got it. That's about as good a plan as we can have as far as I'm concerned.
We'll hope it works.
Okay.
There's always gonna be disgruntled, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments before we move on?
Yep.
All right, let's move on to item number 7, consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of the discussion, consideration, and approval for the following items. Minutes from the regular meeting on October 5th, 2020, encumbrances, warrants, financial reports, required school board member continuing education hours.
Before we make a motion on this, let me call your attention to the board member continuing education points. Thanks to Mrs. Hogue, she added a little column to the sheet you see there that says still needed as of, and then there'll be a date there. So that lets you know it's on the very last page of your consent agenda. So you have to scroll down quite a ways. So, with the information we were getting, it was really kind of hard to decipher. So Lauren just put in that category there.
Good idea.
Because I feel like it's the simplest thing for you to look at and go, okay, what do I need to have? And so I do know, Ms. Guilfoyle, she has met her 12 that were required for her as a new electee on the board. And so she's got 12 that aren't reflected here already. So if you remember, the idea is that you have not only your either incumbent hours or your new electee hours, but you also are required to have annual, or they say annual. Really what it amounts to is you have to have a cumulative 15 over your 5-year term. And so before your 5-year term is up, before you file for your next 5 years, if you do so. So that's really what's reflected in here outside of Amanda's. So if you take Amanda's 12 now, minus that, she's at 3, that's still needed. Now, again, that's over her 5-year term. But remember, that builds every year. So it's 3 each year. We've tried to accomplish that by going to those meetings. That really takes care of our 3 every year. We just haven't been able to do that. So, and this is upcoming in a later, we're going to call an election resolution here later on in the agenda, which will be for Mr. Cleveland's seat. And so, David, you'll have 2 there that you need to gain prior to filing.
Okay.
And so in early December.
All right.
Now, again, all those things are available on the OSSBA site, those town hall meetings, those are all recorded, and you can actually go in there and you can sign up for one and register it, and you get points for it once you viewed it. So it doesn't have to be a live session or a live town hall or anything like that. You can go back and we can do any of the ones that are available. So
Yeah.
It's all out there. If you have problems or you have questions, just contact Lorna. She can help you kind of get signed up, but it's all on the OSSBA site. And like I said, Lorna can point you to those, again, that have interest or interest you in any way, you can get those.
Now,
So-
the town halls are free, but the other stuff isn't. But it'll tell you.
Correct,
You'll know
yeah,
which one it is. 'Cause
correct.
I got confused at one
So let
time.
bill me later.
Yeah,
Tell me later.
and we don't mind paying for it.
If you pay for one.
Yeah, we don't mind paying for them. That's not an issue because it's part of the requirements for you. And that's not an issue. So if you find one, yes, that you really entices you or interests you and it's a paid one, don't think twice about it. Just contact Lorna and we can take care of all that into it. So,
Yeah, I kind of like the town hall meetings. I've done 3 of them now. And
good.
I don't know, they were kind of interesting.
Well, I'm glad they kind of did that as an answer to some of the things that they haven't been able to do in person. So I think it's been a good
How many
option.
more town halls we have? Or are they-
Um,
I think they're gonna run through the rest of the fall,
Are they?
last I heard, yeah.
Almost every Thursday, maybe not every Thursday, but every other, at
Yeah.
least, something like
I
that.
mean, I'm signed up
Couple
for
of months,
most of
maybe.
them.
Yeah, that's typically the day that they'll have it is on Thursday, so. But anyway, I just wanted to call your attention to that because that was a little bit of change and I think it's made it a little bit easier to
Yeah.
read. And so,
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Any other questions, comments on the?
I make a motion we approve on the consent agenda.
Second.
Ryan Higby made the motion to approve the consent agenda as follows. Minutes from the regular meeting on October 5th, 2020, encumbrances, warrants, financial reports, and required school board member continuing education hours. That was seconded by Amy LaSpisa. How do you vote? David Cleveland,
Yes.
Amanda Guilfoyle,
Yes.
Ryan Higby,
Yes.
Amy LaSpisa.
Yes. Okay, item number 8, take action on approving the following fundraiser request for the 2021 school year, the high school boys basketball online auction.
So typically, traditionally, they'll have their auction over here at the fairgrounds. Well, obviously, it's not something that we want to do this year. So there's gonna be a bit of an adaptation to that. He's gonna do an online auction. He's kind of taking this from other groups that have done similar things. He's gonna try to do this in that fashion so that he can at least gain a little bit of the funding that he's used to getting at that auction. So he didn't have it on his previous fundraiser request back in September.
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
David Cleveland made the motion to approve the following fundraiser request for the 2020-21 school year, high school boys basketball online auction. That was seconded by Amanda Guilfoyle. David Cleveland,
Yes.
Amanda Guilfoyle,
Yes.
Ryan Higby,
Yes.
Amy LaSpisa.
Yes. Item number 9, take action on final approval of 2021 estimate of needs in Dewey Public School budget summary.
This is the one you've seen already now. Was no changes. It's all been approved. We're ready to go with it.
Make a motion, we approve.
Second that.
David Cleveland made the motion to approve the final 2020-2021 estimate of needs and DPS budget summary. That was seconded by Ryan Higby. David Cleveland,
Yes.
Amanda Guilfoyle,
Yes.
Ryan Higby,
Yes.
Amy LaSpisa.
Yes. Item number 10, take action on approving an election resolution to Washington County Election Board to call for a Board of Education primary election, if necessary, on February 9th, 2021, and a Board of Education general election, if necessary, on April 6th, 2021, for school board seat number 1, which will have a 5-year term. I make a motion that we approve the resolution.
Second that.
Amy LaSpisa made the motion to approve an election resolution to Washington County Election Board to call for a Board of Education primary election, if necessary, on February 9th, 2021, and a Board of Education general election, if necessary, on April 6th, 2021, for school board seat number 1, which will have a 5-year term. That was seconded by Ryan Higby. David Cleveland,
Yes.
Amanda Guilfoyle,
Yes.
Ryan Higby,
Yes.
Amy LaSpisa.
Yes. Item number 11, take action on approving all personnel contracts for school year 2021.
Anybody that needs to review one or wants to review any, I can have those available to you. If not, we can just move forward. Up to you.
Make a motion, we move forward.
Second.
Or approve, I guess we need to approve the contract, don't we?
Yes.
Make a motion, we approve the contract.
Thank you.
I second.
Ryan Higby made the motion to approve all personnel contracts for the school year 2020-2021. That was seconded by Amy LaSpisa. How do you vote? David Cleveland,
Yes.
Amanda Guilfoyle,
Yes.
Ryan Higby,
Yes.
Amy LaSpisa.
Yes. Item number 12, new business.
There is no new business.
Okay. Item number 13, vote to adjourn. I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Amy LaSpisa made the motion to adjourn. That was seconded by David Cleveland. David Cleveland,
Yes.
Amanda Guilfoyle,
Yes.
Ryan Higby,
Yes.
Amy LaSpisa.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Dang it, I had a question. Something popped up in my head. No, it wasn't for, it was just me thinking. I already forgot it. so.
Somebody, who has to sign the resolution?